Now, I'm excited for today's session and welcome to UXCX, as Rory said. I have with me today Om and Pavitra. I met Pavitra quite a few years ago at Dublin UX event, and she's also previously worked with Rory on the team when she was based in Ryanair, and it was kind of a love relationship from my perspective anyhow. And the reason why this session came up was it's rare to see it's rare to actually get people that are in the exact same industry as a husband and wife to give their perspectives on the industry, on both their careers and the directions that they've taken professionally, and how maybe one and the other has influenced each other. So we're going to speak to both of you today. We said that the gloves are going to be off, or maybe we'll keep them on. But we're going to speak to both of you today to talk through your perspectives on your career on UX and product teams as a whole. And we'll start off by asking you, Pavitra, more on tell us about your processes there at Smartbox Group and what you do from a UX perspective.
First, thanks for having us here. We appreciate it. It's a great platform to be on. At Smartbox, from a UX perspective, we follow the methodology of the double diamond, which is pretty much understand, define, discover, and dev and finalize. But depending on the projects and the feature prioritization, I kind of tweak it a little bit. It goes from discover, define, design, and dev. I try to include the tech team as early in the process as possible, which I think most design teams don't do that. I think tech teams are really, really brilliant. Like, they have a mind of their own. They have the ability to take your idea and take it to a new level because they know much more on how feasible or how technically they can push the limits to make something really much more interesting. So I try and integrate them early on in the brainstorming and ideation sessions right from there. I think that's the biggest change that I've done. And that's not just in Smartbox, also in Ryanair, also in my previous companies. So this is an ongoing across my career. I think across games and enterprise, we follow the same, but then I let Om talk about his field.
Yes, Om, how about you?
Hi, Catherine. Thanks for having us. Yeah, if it's the same question, then in terms of games, what I've seen is, being in the industry, there is a bit of a lag time, like what we call a trickle-down effect. UX came to games late, of course, compared to enterprise software, but once it's arrived, now it's booming. I can safely say in the games industry, there is more demand than there is supply. So there are rare picks in UX designers. So it's great time to be in games UX. In terms of my thought process, and how I develop the strategy and tactics, that has evolved. And one reason for that is I got a break 2 years back to get out of games. I joined Eaton, so worked in a business-to-business company. So currently in my present company, I joined almost 5 months back. We have repositioned ourselves as a human-centered design department rather than user-centered design, because under human-centered design, we can equally solve stakeholder pain points as we are focused towards user. Because working in a B2B company prior to Wildlife, I realized it's equally important to solve stakeholder problems, as it is, because only then you can create a sustainable product. You have to take care of both the voices, not hopefully at the expense of each other. So under human-centered design, we are organizing it as UX design, user research design, and design thinking. So these are like 3 things which sit under the umbrella. And that's our strategy, because we use design thinking workshops for innovation. The workshops are really cool for collaboration, and given that after pandemic and even now most companies are remote, my teams are distributed. We are collaborating between different centers. So Miro workshops are a great way to get everybody together. And so they're like these 2 streams, tactical and strategy. This is the strategy. And on tactical side, we are trying to create a full stack UX designer. So under full stack UX designer, I believe a UX designer should be able to do everything from, user research, prototyping, user testing, and workshop. But having said
like
that,
a product designer.
yeah, like I think you should be jack of all trades, master of some. But at the same time, we're also building a specialized team where we have dedicated user researchers, dedicated UX guys.
Yeah, for us, like the designers do all of it. We don't have different teams or different segments within the team that people who will take care of user research specifically or conduct design thinking workshops. Is a designer who takes from the concept or the project in the backlog right up to development and take it through the entire process. We don't have different streams as such.
Interesting. And would that be the biggest difference for you, or what would be, in your opinion, the biggest differences between how you work?
I think that would be the biggest one, because while it's easier to have the autonomy to be able to do all of this, all of these steps as we think is required for the project, it would definitely be beneficial if we had the experts do, the research and come back to us with the data, and we can make informed decisions instead of taking time away from our own design to try and figure out which research method is required for that particular project or feature.
Yeah, really great. I wanted to circle back onto what you mentioned about remote workshops and that. So everything is remote now from your team's perspective. How have you changed up facilitation of remote workshops?
Yeah, that's a good question, Catherine. And I think I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this, a lot of those professionals themselves must be way more comfortable now doing, remote workshops than physical ones. Because obviously when the pandemic started, we were all into physical workshops. Hey, get your hands dirty. And you still miss that drawing piece, letting everybody being creative outside design when you get diverse stakeholders, because it brings confidence as well. But when the remote thing came, thanks to Miro, or Miro, I think we had to make it work. So we piloted a lot of things. How I approached it way back in Eton was we did a lot of what I call design fire drills. And it was like, so interesting thing is we underwent design thinking training 3 years back. And then the team was like, hey, Om, that's cool. But you know what? We don't have that many opportunities to practice it, because the other people didn't know about it, stakeholders didn't know about it. I'm like, okay, let's do one thing. We'll have dedicated our, fortnightly basis, and we call them design thinking fire drills. So we would bring in a topic on a rotation basis, because we also wanted to train each designer to be a facilitator. And then we created this safe space where, in a low stakes setting, you could experiment. Even if we failed, it was fine, but we learned a lot. And by the end of one and a half year, we have practiced 45 methods in the Luma system that we have studied almost, 2 times over. And when we did these workshops with stakeholders from, across the world, China, US, wherever, of course, the team was doing better because they had so much practice under their belt. So I think we got better, Miro as a tool got better, and people became more comfortable. So I think a lot of practice in that safe space enabled us to, drive it. Now it's like amazing. And I'm repeating the same model at Wildlife now.
Wow, great. So there's a lot of different approaches there. What do you both agree on with regards to the process of UX? What's the biggest things there?
Yeah, I think, I can take that one first, Catherine. For me, and again, part of it also comes from my background. My father was in the army. So, growing up, I learned a lot about strategy and tactics. So when I think of UX or human-centered design, for me, these 2 components are important: strategy and tactics. Strategy is the vision, you have to create it, but the real execution happens on the ground. So tactics is another part of it. So whenever I approach any company I go to, first thing, I believe there is no one-size-fits-all approach. I see what are the unique challenges that company has, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and then the strategy has to be made. And also it has to feed into the higher vision. But yeah, from enterprise UX, the biggest difference I see is
so what do you agree on?
Or what do we agree on? I think fundamentally, I can say I do agree in the basic principles.
The heuristics.
The heuristics that are required, good user research, hiring the right talent, and more importantly, training the right talent. You can't just hire people. And I think we both believe team is more important than individual. My favorite line is, I tell my team and myself, take credit where you give credit where you. But you can be a rock star in the team, but overall you have to uplift the team. I think that's something we agree on.
Yeah.
That's really great. So speaking of teams, could you talk through how both of your teams are structured for very different organizations? Pavi, maybe you first.
My team is quite small, but very, very experienced. So the Smartbox product itself is across the web, mobile, and the app. And we have a designer who is working solely on the web buyer side. So buyer are people who buy the Smartbox. Then we have a designer who is solely on the beneficiary. Beneficiaries are people who receive the Smartbox and they can go and actually experience the gift. It could be hot air balloon, it could be parachute jumping, it could be bungee jumping, it could be a spa, or just a weekend getaway. So there are people who receive it. And I lead the UX for the app, both iOS and Android native. But I'm also the team lead. So we are structured, we are very small. We kind of cater to all three platforms and all customer base. But we are in so many varied countries that at this moment, like, we are trying really hard post-pandemic almost to be trying to approach our customers again in order to figure out, would they be using these smart boxes that they already have? Because we've had such a long lag between people receiving these smart boxes, people not buying these smart boxes, and not actually going and doing those experiences. So the team is small, but we're all working towards one goal at the moment, which is getting out and talking to our customers and figuring out what it is that we can do to help them go and live life, pretty much.
It's a really nice message at the moment in particular.
Yeah.
And how about you?
In my case, Catherine, I think because we are a multi-product category, not category, company. So we have multiple games as in products, and and we serve a lot of different market player audience, if you may call them. How we categorize is like casual players. For these would be games like Candy Crush Saga, very casual, low cognitive effort games on mobile. We are in mobile space. Then there are mid-core, who play more like Call of Duty or other kind of shooter games, and then there's hardcore. So there are different audience types. They have very different needs and values from each other. The same product might not appeal to both, but we do have products where two audiences might overlap. So they're very unique challenges. My team is also right now small, including me, it's 4 people strong, but we are now growing. We're already hiring more people and user research. We're building a UR department on the side. But because we are small and we have so many products, we are working right now as a service team. What that means is, if we have light products, they have requirements, they come to us, and we may, based on bandwidth, we might assign somebody to work on a feature for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Then there are those products which are near launch. So there we dedicate a resource which might be working for 6 to 9 months. It's very metric driven. We soft launch products in few selected countries. We test how metrics are performing, and it's feeded back directly by a product and user research into UX. We hit the metrics, we global launch, we don't hit, we kill those. So at any given point of time, there's a lot of new ideas, prototypes we are working on. So as a UX team, we have to serve these small prototypes, which might be killed just after 2-3 months. These near launch games, which are longer commitments up to 6 to 9 months, and then live games, which are already out there. So it's a very different angle, but that's also interesting, because imagine now you have to build a strategy of how you give the best value at proving the ROI of UX for prototypes, games which are about to launch, and live games, so yeah.
I love how he articulates his answers. How inspiring is that?
Yes, for those out there listening, it was interesting from my perspective when we first started talking about this topic to hear how two different people approach. You talked straight away on that you're very methodical, and you think, and Pavi, you are spontaneous and it's instant, and the opposing kind of views. And I think it shows in even the way that you're working, and your approach style is equally great, but very different, which is great. I guess talking about management styles then as well, and teams, you manage your teams quite differently, would you say? And how do you deal with things like friction? Maybe Pavitra, you could take that one.
Sure. I think the one thing that we both agree upon is we don't like micromanagement. We believe in team members learning and growing at all times, like whatever they're interested in, to be able to encourage and facilitate that. And like, we don't like going into the nitty-gritty, do this, do that, this has to be this way, this has to be that way. Give them the freedom to go ahead, explore, come up with the best concepts or approaches for the problem. From a team specific to me, from a team management perspective, I do conduct, we do have design crits. So weekly design crits that we have. Each person showcases their work, or one person showcases their work if it's going to take the entire hour, and we provide feedback. So this session is very clearly, please do not take anything personally. It's just feedback. It's just feedback. Don't take it like, oh, this person is really criticizing me. We don't do that. And the feedback is constructive. It's not like I hate this and that's it. No, it's put nicely, not as a shit sandwich, not compliment, what's wrong and compliment, but a real honest feedback on, what doesn't work, why it doesn't work, and how, could potentially explore options to improve it. So very constructive sessions those are. And basically, I suppose supporting the team is the biggest one. At this point, I think one of my biggest challenges is pre-pandemic, we were in full flow to get the entire company to understand what UX is all about, what is it that we do, because people didn't know. They'd confuse us with graphic design team or web production team. But I'd started to have sessions, and we had our town halls where we would present our work. But with the pandemic, everything got stopped. So how do we bring about the focus on UX again, make people understand the kind of work that we can do, and the goals that we have and what we can achieve for the company. So as a team, this is my goal, but my team is we are working on it together to be able to drive this together as a team. I don't say I'm the team lead, so this is my thing. No, it's like taking your team with you and driving along and enjoying the journey as you go. There will be speed bumps. That's fine. We'll just get over it and we'll proceed on. So, yeah.
It's interesting how you give a consistent feedback across the board. So for us, we try and take, there's no right or wrong, but we try and accommodate different personalities. We take the impression that over the years, some people take feedback very critically, and other people want more, and we do sometimes the hamburger method, because sometimes people feel that they need that. So it's an interesting and brave approach to go flat out. This is the structure that we give for you for feedback, and it's consistent across the board.
Some people do go through the hamburger or the shit sandwich way, but at the same time, I think it is important to be honest. So in previously I have mentored designers, right? So from different teams who have come in, who are interested in UX, some developers who are interested in UX and wanted to learn the craft. So the mentorship is always an ongoing thing. And if I have to keep complimenting them, telling them what the problem is, compliment them again, it's way too tedious. Yeah. Instead of that, it's better, of course, politely, not I'll throw a dagger at you kind, but politely tell them what the problem is, tell them why you think it's a problem and the potential approaches to find the solution, and let them go and explore it. Give them the stepping stone to roll onto, and then they can take it whichever direction they want to. I think that is more constructive than just trying to massage somebody's ego because they'd be uncomfortable with it.
Agree. And Benjamin, you have a question I'll ask in 1 second, but Pavitra, you mentioned about micromanagement, and I feel that that's easier for you because you have as you quoted, a very senior experienced team. What's your team like? Is that the same case, and would you agree with the micromanagement piece, that is it sometimes necessary, or how do you give autonomy to your teams?
Yeah, that's a good question, Catherine. I think a lot Pavitra already shared, I agree with. I do not believe in micromanagement. I do believe in autonomy. My team is slightly younger. Like, I have a senior experienced designer, thankfully, from my previous company, so we worked together. But then there are other 2 designers who've never worked in games. So there's 1 senior, 1 director, me, and 2 mid-level. And they've worked in UX, but not in games. So, there is a difference. So I think it's very important to, one thing you mentioned, like, understand the person holistically. Each person is different. They have strengths and, not weaknesses, but development areas. But I divide them into soft skill and hard skill. So when I look at a person, when I'm talking to them, I try to assess, like, what are your strong, hard skills, like technical skills? What are you good at? It might be prototyping or user research. You're not that familiar or exposed. You want to learn more. But then soft skills. How are you good as a communicator? How is your collaboration? How are you good at problem solving? Because often I've seen, people rock star at, and they never get this soft skill feedback. It's like a plant. The leaves and the shoots are all your technical skills, which the world sees. But if you're struggling with soft skills, which are your roots, you're not going to go that far, or you will struggle in the end. So yeah, I try to create, I do believe in lead by example. So I always maintain a degree of hands-on versus, strategic management approach. It could be 20 to 80, 30 to 40, but the idea is, you show them, if I'm willing to get my hands dirty, my team believes me even more. That, okay, Om is not just giving me advice. It's totally clear. If needed, he'll jump in and, take the reins if required. So long term, I always tell my team, hey, there's autonomy, and the whole purpose of my design thinking workshops is, like, even the strategy we come up with, we all collaborate together to refine it. But if there comes a moment in time where a decision has to be made, there's paralysis. I said, okay, I'm totally comfortable being autocratic and, making that choice for you guys based on what data I have. But yeah, so, and I do empower my leads to, mentor the juniors. We do have a lot of touch points on a weekly basis. Yeah, mentorship program, and we peer review work a lot. So that way, we're making sure that we are distributing that knowledge.
I really like that. It also empowers those people who want to step up into a management level as well quicker, which is really great. We are short on time, so I want to move on to career choices, because this is a really interesting from you both. Talk us through some of the big moments in your career that the other person has influenced. And I think Pavitra has been a big influence on you in one instance.
This should be fun.
Yeah, so I actually got into UX because of her, because I started out as on the art side. My bachelor's was in economics, behavioral economics. I loved economics and psychology a lot, but in my master's was in advertising and graphics. So I got into games. Then I got into UI eventually, and then she was in UX before me, and she said, get into it at some point. And
I didn't just say get into it. I gave him a whole case study as to why it's good.
I was lucky because I could see her working in UX, and there was nothing like games UX talking 10 years back. Nobody knew about it. There was hardly any material.
But we saw potential.
Yeah.
We could
Clearly,
see.
Yeah.
So she got me to it. So of course, that's a big influence. But stepping up as a person wise, I think one of my biggest learnings was my first job. It was very high pressure environment. So just to give you context, I joined as a trainee, and after 3.5 years, I was an assistant art director. So I rose very fast. And the reason for that was I was willing to put in the work, slog for hours. I was working almost 12 to 14 hours just because I wanted to. I loved making games. And then I stepped up to assistant art director, and the management put on me the responsibility of delivering that product, one whole product. I'm like, okay, nobody else is there, so I'll take it. I took pride that they're giving me that much responsibility. But then they gave me a very tight deadline, 6 months to deliver a very high quality product on Wii, Nintendo Wii. And then we delivered it, but it was not up to the quality expected. The team got burnt out, and I actually quit at that point. I said, it's my fault. I was in charge of that. They told me, no, it was not your fault. I said, no. I was the one who pushing the team. I accepted that as a leader, I need to step down. And the biggest lesson I learned is, learn to say no. Show your vulnerability. You don't have to be a hero all the time. You can't be a hero all the time. It's not about you. You have to take everything into account. And that lesson has stayed with me. If I see an impossible deadline, I'm very candid. I don't mind annoying the CEO and telling no, this will not work. What you are doing is wrong. So there are many interesting incidents, but I would say this was one of the most powerful things which happened.
This is something that I have learned from him, and I'm applying it in my space as well.
I love that. Really great. And I'm going to, because I have to move on time because we're very short. I have one more question, and then I have a question from the audience. What was the most important advantage of working in the same craft? I feel it's the most important question to ask you right now.
So for both of us, our passion and our careers have kind of collided, and it just happens that we're together. So a lot of our talk is either around UX or it's around food. So I think the best part about being in the same craft is being able to understand each other better, because sometimes things get lost in translation because your mind works in a little different way. But we kind of connect on that most times, I won't say all. And we kind of utilize our design thinking techniques outside of work as well. So we do our financial planning through a workshop type. Initially, we even had our own Kanban board for things that used to get irritating between us, and we needed to improve. And it was like backlog, in progress, to do, in progress, done. And then if it wasn't done, there'd be a retrospective. And if it was done, like the other person would take them out for dinner or something like that. So we kind of utilize these techniques, and that has, I think, improved our relationship quite a bit as well. We speak the same language. It never gets boring for some reason. And the challenge and the knowledge that we gain from, at least I gain from him, I don't think he'll say the same. I gain from him is like quite immense and quite vast. I have a support for any small or big thing that comes across, or problem solving. He's really good. As you've heard his answers, he's very articulate. So a lot of goodness in this for me.
That's really great. And I think that's some good advice for even any couple out there, whether you're in the same field or not. I love almost the psychology through a Trello board and through UX thinking, couples counseling. Just quickly on Benjamin in the audience who's asked, he's new as a UX designer and he's trying to break into the industry and always looking for top tips. What do you both look for when hiring UX designers? What would be the biggest standout for either of you when hiring?
Yeah, so Catherine, it depends like what stage you are hiring at. So let's say if just assuming Benjamin, nice to meet you. Let's say you are at the start of your career, so maybe you are being hired for a junior role or a mid-tier position. First, of course, your experience I look at the experience of the person. But if it's a new role, I will look, of course, for things like, what has been your education level, what are your interests. But more importantly, I'm looking for that hunger. I'm looking for that curiosity. I'm looking for traits like how much empathy you have. I'll be honest with you, like people will always give you a test and sometimes you're blown away by the craft. You're blown away by the soft skill. And then when you interview them, how did you come to make this decision? Well, I think it looks cool. It's just what is trending, I mean, look at this one. This looks crap compared to this. I'm like, that's not the reasoning I want from you. So I'm really looking for, are your fundamentals clear? You should not be able to put up something which impresses others as an intelligent solution, usable solution, but why? Why did you get there? Maybe that was, even before bringing the solution, how did you get to that point? So I'm looking for that curiosity, that reasoning, and empathy most of all. I'm not looking for somebody like, as a UX designer, you need to be very objective. You cannot be subjective. There are times you'll need to get into that space, but that objectivity, clarity, curiosity, and hunger for growth, along with decent technical craft, that's what I'm looking at.
I like that. And almost saying also what you don't, if you don't know what something as well, that it's okay not to know everything. You're starting out.
Yeah,
Catherine. So it's the potential, and you don't need to be 100% perfect, because that's also job of whoever's hiring you to, hone you into that person. But yeah, show me that raw, uncut potential. That's what I'm looking at.
Love it.
I think for me, one of the biggest things, of course, everything that Om said, plus one of the biggest things for me is, would the person actually take a second to think before they respond? I think it's very important as UX designers, and this is my own fault in previously early in my career, and I think recently as well, I just react. So working very, very consciously on that, not to be doing that. But when I interview, one of my best and favorite questions that really throw people off. So people listening to this, if I interview you, know that this question is going to be coming. There's, if you had to UX any part of your life, what would it be and how would you do it? So from this question, I'm not actually looking for a real concrete answer. I'm not looking for the process that you'll follow through to change. What I'm looking for is for you, if you will take that 1 or 2 seconds to think, articulate in your head, and then present it. The reason for this is, no matter whether you're in a consultancy, gaming company, Fortune 500 company, startup, it doesn't matter. There's so many stakeholders, so many opinions, so many voices that it gets overwhelming. And if we start responding to each and every one of them, if we start reacting, it just goes southwards and people will stop taking you seriously. Like, it's always better to take a few seconds, articulate, either respond or tell them, you know what, let me think about it, I'll get back to you. So that's the only thing. Like, a lot of people go completely red, they become tomatoes, like the cheeks go red and everything. But that's also a learning. I won't hold it against them if they haven't had that experience, they're still learning. But I think it's important as UX designers to hone in on the craft, to take a few steps back and not react right away.
Yeah. That's really great. We're actually way over time, so I can't even